Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all the news from Star Citizen over the past week. My name is Mac, so let's get on with it. This week we have a double episode of Star Citizen Sunday as I've been unable to get it out for the last couple of weeks. I do apologise. In today's episode we hear about gameplay mechanics such as mining, salvaging and repair, plus we check out the Vulcan as they answer your questions. So kicking off with the first ATV, which was from the 15th of February, they had released a new concept ship called the Aegis Vulcan. I have done a separate video on this highlighting the Vulcan, which can be found in the description. The Vulcan is a 3-man repair, refuel and rearming ship. It uses 4 drones, each capable of being used for helping ships. The interior features a full crew habitation quarters with beds, toilets, table and a kitchenette, a room to access the drones and a cargo hold for up to 12 standard cargo units, with a cockpit for a pilot and 2 other stations either side, which is I think for the turret and the drone operators. Now the ship is now on sale from the 22nd. We will talk about this a little later on, and it's going to be going through March, so throughout March I think you can pick it up. I personally do love this ship. It's a bit too pricey for me, but it's definitely something I will look forward to trying out in the verse. Very excited to see a new industrial sort of workhorse ship. Let me know your thoughts, guys. In terms of the ship update now, the Constellation Phoenix interior and exterior is being fleshed out. It has entered grey box in high poly model. This means all the cool features like the fish tank, the bar, the hot tub, plus the lighting are getting tweaked. The Hurricane is wrapping up on the grey box art side, soon going to be passing on to the tech design for tech setup. The Hammerhead continues on its interior. The focus is now on the nose and the main corridor layout. They're building bespoke assets for the Hammerhead like the specialised lifts and turrets, which they can't use from the Address. The Mustang rework is also in Art Greybox. The tech design team are now prepping for another review. The Avenger rework is also progressing. The Warlock EMP room has been updated and it's close to completion. We got to see a little snippet of this. They're doing flight prep now for all the 3.1 ships, including the Reclaimer. We got to see the landing gear system getting mapped out for this. The Razor and the Cyclone are working on their sound effects, and the Terrapin is the first ship going through the visual effects, so they're all very, very close, and fingers crossed they do make it all in for 3.1. So the main feature for this ATV was the Terrapin. This is your exploration specialization ship, very durable, used to find things and explore. It's got a good scanner array and heavy armor. Not a lot of weaponry, it's quite modest and not too fearful. But it's the first walkable anvil interior apparently, so it should feel pretty new to us. Lots of angles and this sort of hexagon throughout the ship. Very nice. The dashboard looks pretty cool. It feels quite bulky and militaristic. The scanner chair has this cool little drop-down multifunction display. We did see some of the damage setup for it. Lots of areas break off. A very cool look into the power and lighting switch for the Reclaimer as well. We also during this time got to see where a lot of the components are located. I am very, very excited after seeing this for getting components into ships, being able to interact with them, open them up and swap them out or fix them or whatnot. But that was about it for this ATV. Anyway, let's move on to the last week's ATV, which is the Squadron 42 update, talking about the Address. So in the most recent Around the Verse, it was kind of the Squadron 42 update. We looked at the Address, we also looked into what they're currently working on in Squadron 42. They started off by explaining the programming is looking into the performance issues, which is working on ways to make the game run better. Now obviously this will speed up the PU releases as well, but also help in Squadron 42. The object container streaming is continuing to be developed. This allows them to increase the content within the system without increasing the memory or the CPU usage, so it's very important. The current focus is on making the entity system code threads safe. Basically, when you spawn entities, it'll stop the game from stalling and stuttering, like spawning a ship, for example. Squadron 42 will have its own Mobiglass, its own distinctive Mobiglass. The dialing and the look and the feel of this UI now, it looks more inspired from the military HUDs and sci-fi references, which looks pretty cool. They've continued animation work for the Master of Arms on the Address. When you get or return a weapon, you feel like you will be talking to a real character. They're polishing this off further than we've seen in the Squadron 42 demo so far. They're also polishing the grab and inspect animations for the player, making sure that it looks smooth and you're looking at the weapon as you would expect to. Now, the animation department are implementing the PCAP, the performance capture, sorry. They're also bringing the unique walk cycles to the NPCs on the Address, giving these characters a little more distinction. They're also working on subsumption stability updates for crew activities on the Idris, basically optimizing the primary and secondary activities so they work smoother. The quartermaster on the Stanton has her activities set. This is taking charge of stock, distribution, and overseeing the support crew works. And now they say that the cargo bay interactions are set up. And to finish off with they went into this whole living Idris, so they took a look, trying to give the Idris the sense that it's a living, breathing part of the world. Every NPC will have a story and a personality. Each character will have their own name, their own rank, their own role. Be this bridge crew, engineers, deck crew, medical people, the janitors, everybody. These characters will have their life cycles and work schedules as you would expect. So you either see them in their departments when they are working. If they're off duty, if it's their day off, they will be in habitation, they'll be in the mess hall, they may be jogging past, they may be playing arcade machines. They also said that each activity on the Idris will drive the NPC's behaviour. So the chap that we spoke to in the Squadron 42 demo outside the elevator, if you were just to stand and watch him, when they brought these OMC pirates into the hangar bay, he would get called away to go and ensure that they arrive safely and wait with them in the hangar until it's done. And then afterwards, he would then head up to the holding cells and make sure that they're ready for them. Everything runs in real time. It's not faked. These characters are in the locations that they are being asked to go to or wherever they need to be. Now, in terms of engineers on board the Idris, there will be a lead engineer who will wander around the ship assessing things, and then they will request an engineer NPC to come and repair something, rather than just having engineers walking everywhere and fixing things. These activities make the NPCs feel a bit more alive. They also have the ability to trigger conversations by looking at something. Now, if you were looking at something and an AI character nearby picks up on you looking, I think there's like a timer, so if you stare at something long enough, the timer will run down and then they'll start talking about that object you're looking at. Just to sort of show that they're picking up on where you're looking and kind of bringing more interaction to the whole dialogue. They do want the AI to be aware and respond to one another in a more systemic way, maybe reacting to you as well if you've not been showering. We saw a little clip of Sir Davos telling you to get a shower, but they don't want it to be repetitive like we saw on the demo where they kept saying lieutenant and whatnot. The AI will look at things as they walk around as well. It's not just you. In certain areas of interest that will depend on their behaviours and what they do. So if they're like a marine, they'll be looking at the weapons laid out. If they're an engineer, they'll be looking at certain panels and so forth. All the animations are layered. So if there is an NPC walking around, he could just be strolling down a corridor. He may then scratch his arm or scratch his neck while looking at control panels and points of interest. It sounds like it's going to look and feel super realistic. The AI will have behaviours towards you as well, depending on how you treat them. If you cause offence, and the example they gave is punching them in the face, then they will no longer want to talk to you. But if you get an AI something that they requested, maybe from a mission you just did, they will then think of you more positively and react to you in a more warming manner. So every player that goes through this game will have a different experience based on how they treat the other the AI, the NPCs. Now, they did say that the crew size of the Stanton has increased. It was around 30 to 40 or 30 to 50 people, but they realised it didn't feel like it was being lived in. It's now increased to 80 NPCs, which is crazy. They all use wild lines, they all have random dialogue. Personally, I'm very, very excited that all of this is coming together, and I cannot wait to play it. Subsumption, the AI, is something that is so important, especially in a game where 90% of the people you see are going to be AI and only 10% are players. They have to get that right, and by the looks of things, they're doing a good job. Anyway, they did say that the next Squadron 42 update will be next month, so I look forward to that. Okay, so last week's RTV looked into gameplay systems and AI. The first thing they looked into was the mining mechanic, basically how will mining work. And they don't want players to just go to a mining location and hit a button. They want it to be challenging, they want it to be risky. Mining can be very lucrative, so they need to have the risks to balance the money earning. Some of the risks are things like doing your job wrong or maybe risk of attack. This is the risk reward. There will be different types of mining. You've got liquid, gas, asteroids, planetary mining, all requiring different methods and equipment. The tier 0 mining, which is basically the very first iteration that we get our hands on, will be planetary mining. It's not going to be in space, and it will only be mining ore. So no gases, no liquids, nothing like that. The Prospector is what we're going to be using. It will come with its laser and tractor beam, and when mining for ore, the mining laser will inject energy into the rock and try to agitate the particles in the rock and extract the minerals. If you're not using enough energy, you will extract mostly slag or debris. If you have too much, it could be dangerous and explosive, and in some cases catastrophic. Finding the optimal phase or the optimal range of energy will make you more efficient and obviously be safer. So someone asked, will we be able to swap out mining tools for different extraction types? So if we're mining for liquid, will it need different tools to mining for ore? And they said, yes, definitely. It will not likely be a tool which can do everything. If there was, it would be at a very low efficiency, but sometimes it could just require switching subcomponents. But in the case of swapping from liquid, ores, gases, the whole tool will likely need to change. So next question, can only mining ships mine, or can other ships be equipped to do the same? And they say they need to think about it a bit more. Most ships are styled to one area or to a specific role. They will be looking into FPS mining tools soon and see if there's any way they can allow other ships to do a similar thing by adding a mining tool to them. Personally, I do like the idea of role-specific ships. If there was just one ship that could do everything, then everyone would just own that one ship. So I think leave it as it is. Next question is, will heavy mining deplete a node completely or an area? Say if you're mining in a particular area and you just constantly mine, will it ever deplete? And they say yes, areas can be mined out over time. Mineable objects will likely replenish, but this will likely take a long time or a variation of times. So you can mine a place completely. So final question for mining. What happens if two people want to mine in the same area? Can I kill them, or are they protected by the law? Now in the short term they say it won't really matter, but in long term this is why the land ownership is needed. If you own a piece of land and someone is mining and you haven't given them permission, then you will be able to use some type of force. If you are on an asteroid field mining outside of the UEE cloak, then it's more of a dog-eat-dog world. If you're within the UEE space, it may be illegal to attack. So there'll be variations, but yeah, you're not just going to be able to shoot someone if they're mining. So after this, they spoke about salvage and repair. Now, they did ask if there's anything they could tell us. Tier 1 for these will be using more of the shader tech, but in opposite ways. So repair will be replacing the shader tech, putting it back on the ship, and then salvaging will be kind of taking that away. Now, repair will consist of cleaning the section in need of repair, then using elements that you have bought, mined, or found, or whatever, to form a compound which can then be placed over the hull breaches or the exterior damage, repairing it. Now, if you want to know more about this is more long-term. Check out, I've linked it below, the Crucible Repair Deep Dive for more information on this. Salvaging would kind of be the opposite to this, so there's different phases to salvaging or different tiers. You've got hull stripping, you've got item extraction, you have data extraction, and you have siphoning, so things like oxygen or gas or, your fuel. Tier 0 of salvage will focus on hull stripping first and then work through the other facets. This goes for everything. They always start with tier 0, which is what we get in our hands first, and then they build upon that, adding more features. So whenever we get a new feature, do not think, or anything to be honest, do not think that's the final variation of that. It will change. So after this, they spoke about NPCs. Now, the first question was, how will I control NPC pilots and tell them where to fly, where to land, what to do? They said that they looked into this while building the Aegis. Now, the Aegis is probably a good ship to control a fleet. On the bridge of the Aegis, there is a battle sphere, which is an interface like a strategy game, allowing you to give and queue orders for ships or people internally. For example, they said you could tell Wing 5 to go and attack a target, maybe protect a ship. They do want the orders to be very basic, but then allow the AI, and depending on the AI's skill, to do the difficult thinking on how they approach it. NPC AIs will have a thought process. If you're sending an AI into instant death, they may decline your order. Drones obviously will just do what is asked of them, but AI will show more behaviours. Knowing your crew, they say, and their personalities will help you in picking the right person for the job. And this kind of links into the next question about AI hiring. They are currently working on AI skills and perks and how this will affect their behaviours. So when you're hiring someone, an NPC, you will need to know what skills and what traits they have. That said, in some cases, you will not know all of the traits. They won't be visible. But over time, you will find out more about the NPC that as you work with them. So you may find he's against the UEE. Personality traits won't be on the CVs, which, like I say, you need to run a few missions with them first to find out more about their behaviours. Skills, on the other hand, will be visible and you can train them. Attributes will limit what this person can do, as well as what his potential is. But you can train them up and they will eventually become someone worth keeping on and that you have gotten to know in a way. It's kind of freaky. So next question is about hiring pilots to fly our ships while we're not on board or even in the game. Now, they've not spoken much about this. They would prefer players to be playing the game, not using NPCs. It's not likely, though, while you're not in game. So if you're not playing the game, you shouldn't be able to have a whole mining fleet going off and earning you cash. Whether you can have multiple ships in your command working for you using AI pilots, they don't know yet. Plus, they don't really want players with lots of ships overpowering other people because they have loads of NPCs flying around for them. They've not ruled this out, though, but they don't know much about it yet, so we won't jump to any conclusions. So next question is, will the AI crew require food, toilets, sleeping, etc., and will they abandon us if these needs are not met? Now, they say yes, definitely. They're not sure to what extent, but the AI will have needs. It sounds like they say if there's various food quality types. The example that they gave us was microwavable food will just sort of sustain a crew, but if you hire a cook for the ship, then he will provide better food, and if the crew are happy, basically, they will do their jobs better. This, they say, will be handled in terms of buffs and debuffs rather than the death of your AI crew, but it also works for players as well. If you're eating well, your reflexes may be better, or you can run faster, you can sprint longer, maybe you bleed out slower, rather than sort of long-term obvious effects. For example, they said if you're not showering for a while, then NPCs will react to you in a bad way. You won't need to do this every 2 minutes. It will likely take time, and depending on where you go and what you've been doing will determine how dirty you become. But travelling through swamps, for example, and then you arrive at a vendor, he may put his prices up 10% out of disgust. Personally, I do love this idea and how in-depth they're going with it, but I know there are many of you that do not. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. So final question for AI. Will we be able to tell if a player is a real player or an NPC? Now, they said that if you scan, you'll find the name, and likely that's kind of an obvious indication with people's names. Without scanning, it will be more difficult. But like I say, names are a big giveaway. They did say org affiliation will give you a clue as well. But it won't be spelt out for you whether or not it's a real player or not. There will be clues, like obviously players do tend to act more erratic, jumping around and whatnot. So if you are wanting to blend in as AI, you need to act more like one. Anyway, from there they spoke about exploration, the sort of game mechanic with exploring. They have discussed this in terms of short-range scanning and long-range scanning. So using different types of scanning imagery, like maybe thermal imaging, gamma, for example, picking out anomalies, and then checking them out later on. So if you scan in a certain direction, things will start loading in and you will be able to see what is in with it, what is in that direction, and then go and explore them. They do want things to be undiscovered for players to find. Even in one system, there is enough space to be hiding points of interest. You could then sell the information or the coordinates, and it's a good way of making money, even if you're not going there yourself to find out what's there. But once enough people have discovered this item, it will then become public knowledge. So this is kind of like us, players, growing the system in terms of new locations and all sorts, and then eventually everyone will know where this particular station is or whatever. Apparently they did say to go from one end of Stanton to the other end in quantum jump, it will take you about 41 minutes, which is huge. I do think in terms of blind jumping, what's going to happen is if you scan in a particular direction, you will then finally reveal something, and then you can choose that as a place to quantum jump to, rather than just blind jumping. Anyway, other questions and answers we had is, can we train our characters to sustain more G-force? And they say they have thought about this in terms of flight suits maybe allowing you to withstand more due to compression. They are thinking in terms of suits and clothing having benefits, so exploration suits may have better thermal protection but not as much G-force protection. It will be very cool when shopping or owning various suits for different roles, allowing you to keep your character out for specific missions or jobs. Very excited for that. Next question is opening component panels on ships. When is this coming? We saw this in the Terrapin recently. They do have it already in ships where you can, components are in ships. They do want it in as soon as possible, but there's lots that need doing first. They didn't really specify. So second to last question, is there going to be an autopilot? And in quantum jumping, yes, you will be able to get up and mess around in your ship. But obviously, if you'll get warned if you're about to approach something and pulled out, so you need to return to your cockpit quick. Pure autopilot is probably not going to be a thing. If they do, the autopilot capabilities will be reduced to much less than what a player can do. Personally, I do want autopilot, but obviously not as able as a real player. Just going forwards or whatnot would be useful. Anyway, that was Reverse the Verse from last week. Let's get on to the next one. So the final Reverse the Verse was looking more into the repairing, the refueling and the rearming, specifically using the Vulcan. The first question they had was, can the Vulcan repair itself and can the drones repair each other? And they say yes, absolutely. How does the repairing work in general using the drones was another question. And apparently the drones will apply a compound made up of materials used to patch and repair the ship hulls. This is all part of the repair document. As a repair crew, having another crewman to head inside the ship to deal with the damaged components will be a good idea, because obviously external damage is not the only damage that will be present. Being a Vulcan captain will bring decisions in terms on what components, materials and other things you want to have extra on board should you need to use them. If you do take a distress call requiring specific parts, and you have those parts, then obviously you can go straight there and fix them up. If not, then you may want to head to the nearest station or shop and just buy these parts that are on the list at the expense of the person needing repair. Next question is, when it comes to rearming using the Vulcan, does this mean we have to buy all types of ammunition, or is it just going to be a one-size-fits-all? Now, he says that you would probably need to buy a mixture of ammunition. Potentially, they may see some smart ammo. Each weapon may be deciding whether or not that specific ammo wants to be armor-piercing or incendiary. This isn't confirmed, it was just very rough speculating. Nice idea, but I don't really know if I want that or not. But it might be worth taking a selection of ammo types. Having some generic types would probably be a good idea, and then if there's anything specifically that you need that's kind of a speciality ammo, maybe go on and pick that up separate. Don't forget though that players themselves will be second-hand dealers if they've been salvaging weapons, or if they've got components that they found or weapons. Buying from them could be at a lower cost if you can haggle with them compared to actual shops, so keep that in mind. Someone did ask, will the Vulcan be able to rearm missiles and torpedoes? And they say yes, but those torpedoes or missiles must fit with inside the Vulcan. Obviously, a size 12 missile is not likely going to be an option. So the next question is, will the Vulcan be able to collect fuel from gas giants? And they say no, you'll need to fill up your big external fuel tank from a provider, so a Cryastro, or maybe having a friend as a Starfarer owner would be a good idea. Someone asked, why would you own a Vulcan over a Starfarer? And it's basically flexibility. If you own a Starfarer, this means that you will want to play as a refueler, kind of for, the most priority. The Vulcan allows you to play in many areas, but not specialise in one area. Kind of gives you a good little balance of all sorts there. Next question is, will there be a physical activity when it comes to loading the drones, or are they all auto-replenished? Now, they say initially it's not going to be very hands-on. This will increase over time as they build it out a little more. Controlling the drones from the support station is probably the most hands-on we'll have for the moment. You control it and you actually do the repairs using the drone itself and using this station. Refueling will be done by attaching yourself to the Vulcan rather than a drone, so you'll have to have, it's kind of like a refueling rod at the front or the back or wherever it's going to be. Rearming, they say, is still a little to be determined. They don't want drones flying up and down corridors carrying components. Drones are only for external use. Internal repairs and refueling or rearming may have to be done by people. We will see. Next question is, why would you get a Vulcan over a Crucible? Again, similar to the Starfarer job. Obviously, the hangar bay in the Vulcan can hold a small ship, like a Hornet-sized ship, and do a full health sort of repair, whereas the Vulcan is good for small to medium patch-ups or little repairs, whereas the Crucible can obviously do it all back to square one. Determining whether a repair will require a Vulcan or a Crucible is more just down to who you are and whether you think you can handle it or not. But technically, the more damage a ship has, the bigger the ship it will need to repair, because it would just take too long. They did say, though, during this question that the Crucible has gotten a little bit bigger due to the increase in size of the Hornet, which obviously needs to fit in the sort of repair bay. So next question is regarding the drones. Are they the same drones as the Reclaimer? Now, all the drones currently are made by Saga Data Systems. That's the in-fiction company. They look similar because they're the same company, but they perform differently. The Reclaimer uses salvaging drones. This wouldn't be the same thing. that you would use on the Vulcan. But they did ask, can we put the reclaimer drones on the Vulcan? And they say probably yes, but usability-wise, it'll be much less. It might be a good option to have a salvage drone, but until they start fleshing it out, I'm going to say no on that one. Anyway, next question. How many ships can the Vulcan repair? Now, this would obviously depend on the job required. One job may require all the fuel that you have, whereas another one may only require 10% of the fuel. And the same goes for supplies and repairing. So there's no way of saying how many it will be able to do. It all depends on what the initial jobs require you to do. Can the Vulcan drones sabotage is the next question. And they say it's not likely going to have the ability to remove items. The drones are designed to help, not the opposite. Will the Vulcan be out this year? They say it's not on the 2018 schedule, but they can't really answer that for sure. Another question is, how well will the Vulcan work for a solo operator? So if you're playing on it on your own. Now this can be done, but it's just not a good idea. Obviously, if you're using a drone, you have no pilot, you have no turret gunner, which means you don't have any defense. So if you do get attacked, I mean, you can put your turrets on auto fire, so it is possible to do that, but I wouldn't do it in anywhere that's likely to be dangerous. So another question, can you repair, refuel, and rearm while moving? Now they say the drones do have their own thrusters, but it's not going to be as fast as a ship, so it's easier to repair remaining stationary, but I suppose moving slightly at some speed is also possible, but maybe a bit more difficult. Next question is, must the ship's shields be down for the repair to happen? And they say no, shields just reduce the velocity of objects or of mass. They don't stop things completely, so a drone passing through slowly will have no issues at all. Last question, what happens to the drones if they get fired upon? Now basically these drones have no countermeasures, they have no way of protecting themselves, so you'll need to get them back to the ship as quick as possible before they take too much damage, and then obviously jump in your turret and shoot down that guy that's firing at you. So some other points, the drones can be used in space and within the atmosphere. It is possible to have all 4 drones out and working, but you can only control 2 at a time. So I think you can, they did sort of say that you can set one going and it'll automatically start patching up, and then you can move on to the next one, set that one off to go and start doing something else, and then potentially, but obviously if you have all 4 out, then trying to get them back in a hurry is going to be difficult because you'll have to take 2 in at a time. If you just need a little bit of fuel to leave a planet, calling out a starfarer would be way too costly, which is why the Vulcan is kind of your roadside service, there for helping you get on your way until you can find more of a permanent fix later on. It's also very beneficial for helping ships in asteroid fields, because you're not trying to take in a huge ship to try and navigate asteroid fields. But also the cost in calling out a Crucible or a starfarer to do these little jobs would probably be too much just for the sake of, say, a downed M50. Anyway, that was the Reverse the Verse. Focusing on the Vulcan, some really good questions. I'm 100% certain there'll be a Q&A coming out sometime this week, which we will gather up the information for next week's Star Citizen Sunday. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, guys. I am very excited for the ship. I'd love to hear if you are too. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching. A big thank you to the subscribers and the patrons as you make this possible. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow me on Twitch, Twitter and Instagram, and I shall see you next time.